Oh my God.
Come on, Wade. Camera's coming out.
All right, guys, welcome back to the YouTube. Today we got a very special guest we're going to be interviewing and learning a lot about. We got my dog, Wade Houston. I moved to Miami January 2024, and I moved here with the mission of I want to find people that are doing better than me, and I want to just get around them and learn from them. I saw Wade on Instagram after being in Miami for a couple of months. He makes a ton of money. He lives a great lifestyle. He impacts a ton of lives, and you've probably seen him on Instagram. But I want to know, what was Wade like before the Wade that everybody sees on Instagram? Because it wasn't always lots of money, good character, mindset on point. So I like to learn about people's past and where they came from and what got you from where you used to be to where you currently are, because I'm sure there's a ton of things you've learned with your experience that can change a ton of people's lives so they don't have to go through the same rough stuff you went through to get where you're at. So Wade, first and foremost, thank you for coming on the podcast. We kind of made our own studio, but I think it's a thing. It's looking pretty good.
It's a thing. It's going to become a real thing. You out here trend setting.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, thanks for having me, bro.
100%. So first and foremost, let's talk about where did you grow up? What were you like as a kid? Family, all that.
So I grew up in Vermont. I came from a wonderful family. I have the most wonderful mother, excellent father, super strict. They taught me amazing manners. You know, I didn't really want for much as a kid. Sports were life. Hockey, football, baseball. I have an amazing sister. I would say at about 13 years old is when I got introduced to drugs and alcohol and partying. And at that time I was already, an all-star in football and hockey, and we went to church here and there. Mm-hmm. So I knew who God was, but I definitely didn't have a spiritual relationship. Once I got into drugs and alcohol, it actually very, very quickly took over my life. I was able to maintain good grades. I was able to be an excellent athlete, but I went from doing, weed and drinking and some mushrooms to slowly over time Xanax and Coke and Adderall. And next thing I know, I was doing a lot of different kind of drugs every day. I went to prep school to play hockey. I got recruited in a scholarship to play D1 hockey. I blew that. I got kicked out of prep school. Then I got kicked off my junior hockey team. At 17, I was selling fake IDs. I came back home, started selling crack. My parents found out and kicked me out of the house. So at 19 years old, I'm kicked out of the house. My parents want nothing to do with me. I'm living with kids that are older than me. And one of my buddies says, hey man, I think you could still play football in college. I end up going to Boston College football camp. I get recruited, and 3 weeks later, I go to Bentley College in Massachusetts to play football, and I get kicked out after 6 months there. I come back home. I'm now just trying to figure it out, community college. And then I get introduced to Oxycontin. You know what this is?
I've heard of it. I don't know too much about it.
It's the most addictive painkiller ever made. It's like 40 times more addictive than Percocet or Vicodin, and it was a real epidemic back then. This was late, before 2010. So I get super addicted to this. We start bringing in lots of Oxycontin, and that's where I hit my first bottom at age 23. So I had my third DUI, my third assault charge, and I was addicted to Oxycontin. I was robbing kids at gunpoint because I was such a degenerate. Then I get robbed and I go to rehab. So now at 24 years old, I'm like, all right, I'm done drinking. I get introduced to AA for the first time. I start to understand a little bit more about spirituality and God outside of just church and religion. And I start to clean up my life at this point at 24. Now, from there, it continued on. Right? I didn't do pain pills anymore and I didn't drink after that, but man, weed and Xanax and prescription pills and all this other shit just kind of clouded my life. And quite honestly, I lived a pretty selfish existence my whole life. A very hedonistic, selfish existence, thinking that life was all about nice cars, nice places, dope watches, Louis bags, and hot girls. Really, I watched so many rap videos that I wanted to be a rapper without being a rapper, and I just wanted all the shit that they had.
Yep.
Right? Even though my dad would always say to me, man, you should, focus on you, become a better person, all this, all that. I just went the wrong direction. And it wasn't until I moved to Miami in 2019 where this place just sucked me in. And I hit rock bottom here. I got drugged and robbed out of the club after partying. I was drinking again. I was doing all sorts of shit that I hadn't done in years. And I hit this point on May 6th of 2019 where I woke up and I felt the most bankrupt I had ever felt. Now, a lot of people would have probably stopped drugs and alcohol long before I did, right? 3 DUIs, 3 assault charges, kicked out of multiple schools, parents giving up on them. Like, what the fuck? At some point, you got to say, okay, enough is enough. For me, none of that shit mattered. There was no judicial consequence. There was no monetary expense that got me to a position to feel spiritually bankrupt. And for the first time in my life, I woke up on my back and I just felt this hole in my chest. The worst feeling I had ever felt. And I remember I called my dad and I was like, hey dad, that watch that you gave me got stolen. And he was like, I don't give a fuck about a watch. He's like, but are you drinking and getting fucked up again? And I was like, yeah. And he said, look, the way that I see it, you have 2 options. Either you bounce in and out of AA for the rest of your life and you be a loser, or you go to AA, get a sponsor, work the 12 steps, and maybe you have a chance at a good life. Now, Alcoholics Anonymous has nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. The point of Alcoholics Anonymous is to create a spiritual relationship with God to bring about an entire psychic change so that you do not rely on any vices, including drugs and alcohol anymore. It's a complete program of spirituality and personal development. And so that is how I developed my really solid relationship with God, was by clearing out the wreckage of my past, doing what my sponsor told me, starting to help other people, praying every single day, meditating every single day, and forming this relationship. And from that point in my life, I never felt alone again. And there's been ups and downs, as with all of us. You know, I'm not a perfect human. There's been times where I've strayed from God and I have to get myself back on the path.
Of course.
But that's how I came to find God. It was through massive pain and just this hole of you know, spiritual lacking in my life.
So my question for you is, at age 13, when you first started doing drugs and alcohol, did you have that voice in your head telling you, maybe it was quiet in the super very back of your head saying you shouldn't be doing this? And if not, when did that start to become a thing? Because I feel like one thing for me is whenever I'm doing something I know I shouldn't be doing, in the back of my head, I have my conscience. I feel like it's the voice of God saying, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. And you just listen to it over and over, but you constantly keep doing that bad habit over and over and over, which brings shame, because when you're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing, that puts shame on you because you're like, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm doing it anyway because I want to fit in, or this is what the cool people are doing. Did you have that voice at a young age? And if not, when did you start to realize, okay, maybe what I'm doing with these drugs and alcohol, I shouldn't be doing? And how long did you have that voice before you actually took action and made a conscious effort to stop doing what you know you shouldn't be doing?
You know, at 13, I just thought this was normal. I just thought all kids partied, right? Everyone around me, all my peers, everyone was partying, and I thought it was a completely normal thing. It wasn't until I got really addicted to Oxycontin that I found myself being unable to do life at all without drugs. And I remember it was at that point where I was like, man, I shouldn't be doing this, right? Like, this is obviously not the right path for me, but it had taken such a hold on me. It's more addictive than heroin, right? And so you get to a point where it's like, hey, I can only function with Oxycontin and the withdrawals are so bad and my life is gonna be so bad without it. There's no other option. You're so clouded and fucked up, you can't even see any other option. Now, once I got off the pain pills, it was a pretty shitty 6 or 7 years of doing things that I knew I should not have been doing, right? My conscience telling me, hey, at some point you probably shouldn't be eating so much Xanax. At some point you probably shouldn't be doing so much Molly and ketamine. But I always thought to myself, like, well, weed's not that big of a deal. And I think for me, what happened, look, some people can utilize weed and succeed in life, good for them, right? I'm not one of them. It clouded my judgment and it limited me from actually listening to my conscience, right? Because I smoked weed every day until 31, and that restricted me from actually observing myself and being like, hey, that thought that's saying don't do this, that's actually your conscience, that's actually God speaking to you. So being clouded by drugs limited me from ever being aware. And once I got rid of the drugs and alcohol at 31, now everything I do, I can very quickly say, hey, my conscience is telling me not to do this, that's God, right?
Yep, that's a good place to be. I think something you said that's super important is when you were 13, you just thought that's what all kids do. All kids do drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
My guess is probably because all the kids around you were doing drugs and alcohol. So if that's all you see, you just assume okay, this is what it is, which is why it's so important to be surrounded by good, solid people that can lead you in the right direction, which I feel like is one of the best reasons to get into Miami. If you're looking to make more money, when I was living in Pittsburgh, if you made $60K a year, that's like good. Because in Pittsburgh, there's not a lot of people making 6 figures or 7 or 8 figures or even 9. So everyone around you is making 60, 70K a year. So you're just like, okay, this is what everyone does. I'm just gonna be comfortable doing this.
Yep.
It's until you get into a spot in Miami where it's like, if you're not making 7 figures, like you got work to do.
Yeah.
A lot of the people in Miami are making 7+ figures. And if you're not, you're gonna feel uncomfortable, like I need to do better. What I'm doing is not good enough. I need to do more. Works that way with drugs and alcohol, works that way with your income, works that way with your body. Like if you're constantly hanging around fat people that eat like crap and you're fat and you eat like crap, you're gonna think that's okay because you're gonna think this is what it is, this is what everyone does. But if you're fat and you eat like crap and you get around someone like you or like George that we were working out with, real quick you're gonna be like, okay, that dude looks way healthier, he's got more energy, he seems happier, what I'm doing is not okay, I gotta change. Maybe you won't say that, but that's what your conscience will tell you.
Totally.
Because you're getting around the right people, and then it's always on you to listen to your conscience. So my question for you is, moving to Miami, how much of an impact did that have on you being around the types of people in Miami? Because I feel like there's 2 different ways it can go when you move to Miami. It can make things worse. Like it could be, okay, you got a problem with drugs and alcohol in Virginia, now you're in Miami and it's 10 times worse. Or, okay, you got a problem with drugs and alcohol in Virginia, you come to Miami and get around the personal development type people and you feel like, okay, what I'm doing is not good, I want to have the lifestyle they're living. So my question for you is, how big of an impact did moving to Miami have on you? And how long did it take for you to get from the wrong crowd and into the right crowd?
Yeah, so my journey, as I was saying, I was hanging out with the wrong people for those first 3 months, and that's what brought me to my rock bottom, was going out to the clubs every night here and doing drugs, and I reached that point where I was like, hey, I need to make a change. I actually sat down with all of my friends at that time and said, hey guys, I know that you guys can turn it on and off and party once in a while, but I can't. And so I'm gonna have to spend some time away from you guys, probably 6 months, and go work on myself. And all of them were super supportive of me, they're true friends. They were like, hey man, do what you gotta do, we support you, we love you. If you ever think you can get fucked up again, you're an idiot. So please take your time and recover as a person. So I spent so much time alone for the next 1.5 years, really only with my sponsor in AA and 2 other people in AA, and then eventually 3-4 months down the line, my mentor. Every Friday night, 9 p.m., I would be learning by myself and I would go to bed and I would wake up early and go see my mentor the next day. There was no dinners, there was no beach clubs, there was no going out, there was nothing. Complete isolation for 1.5 years. And I didn't let anyone into my life that wasn't growing, that wasn't spiritual, that didn't have the same morals and values, that wasn't at that time sober. I couldn't be around it, right? I always say the most important thing is this: identify the people, the places, and the things in your life. Who are the people you're hanging around with? Where are the places you're going? And what are the things you're doing? If you're hanging around with fixed-minded, small-minded people who are using drugs and alcohol and not growing, and you're going to places like clubs and bars and parties and all this bullshit, and the things that you're doing are drugs and all these small-minded activities, you're fucked, right? Good luck enjoying that life. I did it for a while and it brought me to my knees. But if you say, hey, I'm gonna go to gym early, I'm gonna find other people at the gym who are on the same path as me. I'm gonna go to church. I'm gonna eat at healthy places. And now I'm gonna foster these people that are personally developed, spiritually aligned, and financially making money. The world it's your oyster here. Literally, you can do whatever you want. Right. I will say this: it is extremely humbling when you first move down and you're not making the money that other people are making. And you wanna know, why has my success not caught up to me yet? And a lot of people will give up before the work that they put in materializes to any success. You're always gonna have that time where you become the person that's worth the life that you want, but the life hasn't caught up with you yet, right? You have the mindset, the skill set, and the spirituality, and maybe even the network, but the income hasn't come. Don't fucking give up. If you're doing what you know you should be doing each and every day, healthy, spiritually aligned, fitness, and focusing on business, do it until the fucking miracle happens. That's how it worked for me.
One thing that I noticed you said is you had a period in your life where you were in isolation, basically alone for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
One thing about me, I'm a big believer in Jesus. I'm a Christian. And one thing that's undeniable is for people that are always looking for influence or how to make an impact or how to be a better leader and change people's lives, one thing's for sure is most people on the planet have heard the name Jesus. And I think the reason is he was so influential, the best leader to ever walk the planet. And if you dive into the Bible and learn about Jesus, one thing that Jesus often did was withdrew to lonely places and prayed. And one thing I've observed from a ton of successful people that I've studied and learned from and met is they've always gone through a period in their life where they got lonely and maybe they cut off their old friends and they just felt like they were alone for a certain period of their life. And I feel like that's when the voice of God starts speaking to you and he starts telling you what path to take.
Totally.
And it's on you to have the courage to give up that old life and listen to what you're hearing and take action. I went through the same thing when I was 19. I moved from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Tampa, Florida. And I never moved out from my house because I went to community college. So up until age 19, I slept at home, never left my parents for more than a week at a time, ever in my life. And out of nowhere, I was in the basement praying. I hear the voice of God say, that life insurance opportunity you keep seeing online, go do that. I'm gonna use that to help change your life. It seemed crazy. Everybody said, bro, read their reviews. That's a pyramid scheme. That's a scam. I know 20 people that tried working for that company and they failed. You should go to college. You should get a degree, get a comfortable job with benefits. But the voice of God, because I withdrew to lonely places and prayed, that's always been a part of my life, was clear as day saying, don't listen to them. I'm telling you, Florida, life insurance, I'm gonna use this to change your life. It didn't make any sense. I had no sales experience. I didn't know one single person in Florida, only been to Florida one time in my life, had no money saved up, $0. Luckily, I had these child bonds that I got as a kid, cashed those out. It gave me like $800. Moved to Florida with $800, no support from anyone. But like you said, loneliest phase of my life ever. I didn't know one person in Tampa. So all I had to do was work and listen to the voice of God because I got nobody to talk to. It's a lot of alone time, which was the best thing that ever happened to me because there was a lot of clarity, hearing this is what I should be doing, basically just hearing the word of God and just obeying over and over and over. And it's something I still do to this day. I get alone with God in the morning, I pray, and he speaks to me. And it's crazy to hear that you went through that isolation phase too. One thing that's really cool, I feel like we're similar in this, is you seem like you were kind of a rebel kid, like getting kicked out of school, doing drugs and alcohol. I was never big into drugs and alcohol, but I was a super rebellious kid, like not listening to people whatsoever. And it's usually those types of people that are willing to take a risk and be like, screw it, I'll go be alone by myself for a long time because I don't need anybody, I got myself.
Yep.
And then that's what you need a lot of times to become successful, is that alone time where you can learn about yourself, listen to God, and he'll clearly instruct you what to do. So that's crazy that you went through that.
A lot of times the answers are already within us.
Yep.
But we have a life that is clouded by inputs that don't let us hear the voice of God that already exists within us. This could be girls, this could be Instagram, this could be food, this could be drugs, this could be anything. But those inputs are clouding us from just sitting in silence and finding that voice inside us. And so I always tell people, take an audit of your life and stop letting all these inputs limit you from the voice of God. And that's what I had to do.
Crazy. Now, I've seen on your Instagram that you are the president of 10X Health, which is a massive company. A lot of people have heard of 10X Health in Miami. But I've also heard you talk about when you were the president, you had the title, the position, the income, the influence. But if I remember correctly, you weren't feeling fulfilled. Yeah. You weren't happy. You were still running to different sorts of vices. Talk to me about when you were in that time frame of your life. What were you thinking? And what did you learn, important lessons that other people can learn from taking you from that position into what you do now, if you want to elaborate on what you do now.
Totally.
And how much happy you are and more fulfilled once you made that transition.
Totally, yeah. So at the beginning of COVID is when I actually became the personal development person that you see today. That's when I said, I'm gonna wake up at a consistent time, I'm gonna pray, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna read, I'm gonna go on a walk, I'm gonna design these workouts, and I'm gonna track my macros. That's when I went full Army Ranger, right? And that changed my life. In 2 months period of time, I went through 2 different job opportunities that one rescinded the offer, one I backed out of, and I ended up getting a job as a sales manager in a functional medicine company. I didn't know anything about medicine, but I was so confident because of those 2 months, I never missed a single promise I made to myself. I had already gotten in better shape in just 2 months. My mind was on fire. I had such a good connection with God. I was working with my mentor that I take this company over and I go from sales manager to director of growth to taking over the company. And we go from 4 million to 12 million in a year and a half. And I was the most optimal I had ever been. Every day, morning routine, workout, doing the shit I needed, just emotionally intelligent. It put me in a position where I was an amazing leader. Now, I then get recruited to be president of 10X Health. I'll never forget this. The day I show up, I'm changing in the parking lot, and Brandon Dawson comes out to me and he goes, "You better kiss those abs goodbye." Like as a joke, because I was so in shape, but he was saying, "You're gonna be so busy that's not gonna take a priority." And at first I was like, that's kind of funny. But bro, the craziest shit happened. I was working 18-hour days. I had office in Beverly Hills, Arizona, Miami, and I started slacking on my habits. I started waking up a little later because I was going to bed so late. I stopped working out in the morning. Then I stopped meditating in the morning. Then there was no reading in the morning. And then my prayers were just like, "Thank you, God, give me a good day. Okay, see you later." Like, dude, bad.
Yep.
And after 4 months of starting to slowly slack on my habits, I found myself so anxious, bro. I would get to work every day with my fucking hands clenched. Like I want to kill all my employees. I was losing it on people. I was so intolerant. Sometimes I would just hide in my office and I wouldn't want to deal with anyone. I became incapable of managing the stress around me. For no other, it wasn't my skill set that diminished, it was my mindset, it was my spiritual connection, it was my discipline and my habits. And so I noticed very quickly as I was working with my mentor was like, "Bro, I can give you all the advice that you want, but until you go back to your disciplined morning routine, your emotional intelligence is gonna be low, your anxiety is gonna be high, your focus and clarity is gonna be shit. So get your ass back to that." And so I did. I went back to that, and that helped me get back on track. But it made me realize that I can never rest on my laurels. My past accomplishments will not get me shit today. What I prayed and meditated and did yesterday will not cultivate a relationship with God today. Every single day that I need to wake up, I need to prime my mind, my body, and my spirit to be able to handle the day. And as a result, since then, have I gone through some periods of less disciplined than I could be? Sure, I've had ups and downs. But I know immediately when I start to feel off track, I have to get back to that disciplined morning routine that got me here. And that's what lent itself to eventually leaving 10X and getting online and coaching other people, because this had made such a massive change in my life. I went from unconfident to super confident. I fixed my autoimmune disorder. I got in really good shape. I moved up in business. I developed a spiritual relationship. I started treating people better. I reduced my anxiety. My whole life got better as a result of following this program. And then I meet Wes Watson, and he's like, "Bro, I'll show you a way to teach people what you've just done with your life and transform others' lives." And that was the moment. That was May of 2023. So then July of 2023 is when I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna start coaching." And at that time, I had a healthcare consultancy. I was consulting for functional medicine clinics around the world. And after 6 months, I felt so spiritually aligned and so on purpose that I was helping so many people change their mind, their body, their spirit, their business, that I sunset the healthcare consultancy, and I just started coaching full time. So I've been coaching full time for a year, and it just took off. You know, I feel so completely on purpose to be able to help people with their mindset and changing everything in their life, and now also helping people create those coaching programs for themselves.
All right, wait, now before we wrap up, I got 2 final questions for you. First one is, what is one massive challenge that you used to face in your life, and how did you overcome it, and what's the alternative of overcoming that? For example, I was failing out of college and I always wanted to make a lot of money, but I never knew how. So the challenge I faced was I felt internal hopelessness all the time of like, frick, I got no chance at succeeding. I'm gonna have to go to the military and like I'm gonna be broke for the rest of my life. I thought that way for 2 years. The way I overcame it is I saw an opportunity online. Even though people were telling me it was too good to be true, I took the risk and did it anyway. Got around people making good money who didn't have a college degree, and they were telling me you don't need a college degree to make a lot of money. You need work ethic, coachability, good attitude. And then I started making a ton of money. So that's how I overcame it. Now I make a ton of money, and I like to help people who are also hopeless, failing out of school, don't want to work a 9 to 5, but don't realize there's opportunities out there. I do whatever I can to get their attention, show them there is opportunities out there, and then I teach them how to make money without a college degree. That's my example. But what's an example where you were at a low point, and how did you overcome it?
So this is still, to this day, what I struggle with the most. And it is when I start having massive success, I slightly slack on my relationship with God, and I start taking my will back, thinking that the thing that got me that success was more me than God. And I take my will back to the point of doing things that aren't as aligned with God as they should be. And these are very, very little small things, just basic decisions. It could even be slacking on my routine or missing church once in a while, or these small things. And as a result, I get misaligned. And my problems start to become insurmountable. And I can't see a clear direction or a clear path. And I will sit in this pain, sometimes for a day, for an hour, sometimes for a few weeks, before I seek God in the way that I know I should and have all along for the past however many years. And I'll find myself, without his direction, my life just falls apart. And it happens every time when I experience success. And so I know the more success I experience, the more I have to lean into God. And that was a crazy concept for me. I always thought like, oh yeah, God's gonna help me through these hard times. No. God is with me all the time. God doesn't move, only I move, right? So I can't take my will back. And so for anybody that starts to experience this success, that's when you really need to lean in more and don't slack on the things that got you there. That's honestly the biggest challenge that I face still to this day.
Crazy, because as I reflected on 2024, the biggest takeaway from the year I had was the exact same thing, bro. In 2020, when I moved to Tampa, two things happened. I started going to church and actually feeling a relationship with Jesus and with God. And instantly I started making a lot of money compared to what I was used to. And I've told this story before. For 4 years, I thought I was the reason I was making all this money. And I thought I'm better than everybody. I'm a killer at sales. I'm a killer at recruiting. And I also thought the money was what was bringing me my happiness, because I felt way happier than when I used to be broke living up in Pittsburgh. And it wasn't until just this last year something happened in business. It's adversity, it is what it is. But God disciplined me. If you read the Bible, God disciplines the ones that he loves. Disciplined me by taking away my income for 7 months. And I have a lot of expenses. I pay for my girlfriend, myself, and my mom. No income for 7 months, which brought me to such a low point in life. I'm like, I thought I was a beast at sales. I thought I was a beast at recruiting. Now I'm not making any money for 7 months. And then it wasn't until then I was in church and God spoke to me clearly and he said, you do realize 4 years ago, 2 things changed in the same matter of your life. You started making more money, which is what you thought was bringing you the happiness, but you also gave your life to me. I gave my life to Jesus in 2020. And right when I gave my life to Jesus in 2020, abundance started flowing into my life. The thing is, I didn't realize that's why the abundance was coming. I thought it was because I'm him, I'm good at all this and that. So I'm so blessed, bro. The biggest lesson I learned is when he took it away, it brought me to a point where I realized the money's not what's bringing me joy. And I'm not the one that's freaking earning this money. It's I'm blessed, I'm grateful, I don't deserve any of this. But because I surrender my life to Jesus and try living to please him, he blesses me with more and more and more. And I'm so grateful that that income was taken away for 7 months, because now when I receive the income or when people ask me, how do you do everything that you're doing? I say, bro, I'm not special whatsoever. I'm no different than you. The reason I'm receiving these things in my life is because I believe I gave my life to Jesus. I listen to him and I try my best to obey what he tells me to do. I'm not perfect by any means, but I think the more and more you listen and obey, the more blessings are gonna come. And I also know that the Bible says pride leads to destruction. Pride comes before the fall. So if I hop on camera and I start saying, bro, I make this money because I'm a beast, I'm a killer at sales, I, me, that's pride. And what comes after pride is the fall, which is exactly what happened earlier this year. I was telling people I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. Boom, fall came. But I'm glad because that's where I learned my lesson. And now I'm hoping to avoid the fall, because I try to give all glory to God, stay super humble, and just do my best to glorify him and keep my life that way. I don't want anyone to think I'm special. I'm super blessed and super grateful, bro. I think gratitude attracts more things into your life, but when you're used to it for 4 years, you start to become less grateful for it. Now that I know the feeling of what it feels like to have it taken away, I'm 10 times more grateful, and I'm gonna make sure I never lose that gratitude because I don't wanna stop living the life that I'm living. I love it, and God has been so great to me. My next question, then we'll wrap it up because I know that timer went off. If you had a kid who was 19, addicted to drugs and alcohol, and he came to you and just asked, what should I do? Like, I'm lost, what's your advice? What do I need to do? I'm addicted to drugs and alcohol. I know it's not right. I know I need to make a change, but I don't know what to do. What would be your advice to that kid if it was your son?
So the first thing I would ask him is, I would say, hey man, like, how is this affecting your life? I would just want to hear from him how he thinks that it's affecting his life. And when he would tell me, hey, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, I would say, hey, look, let's go to a meeting together. Let's go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Whether he's addicted to drugs or alcohol, I think that is the most important fundamental step for anyone that may or may not be an alcoholic or an addict, but that thinks that they are having a problem with drugs and alcohol. Just go to a meeting. And when you go to that meeting, do not try and compare yourself to other people and say, I'm better than this person or I'm not as bad as that person. Just see if you can relate to the way any of the people in that meeting think and feel. And if you feel like, hey, maybe some of this thinking is the way I'm thinking, keep going back to meetings. And if you can say to yourself, hey, drugs and alcohol actually have a hold over my life and I am powerless over them, you should get a sponsor in AA and start working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That for me was the only way to get drugs and alcohol out of my life. And as I said, that program helped me develop a spiritual relationship with God, which brought about an entire psychic change from which has been the foundation for my growth in every area of life.
Game changer. All right, guys, well, we're wrapping up. Thank you, Wade, for coming on here, pouring into us, letting us learn from you.
Hell yeah.
One of my biggest tips for people in the life insurance industry is you have to find a mentor who has what you want and do whatever you have to do to learn from that mentor so you can know what they know and do what they do. That way you can have what they have. Wade has been able to go from drug addict, alcoholic, to successful businessman, online coach, unlocked mentally, physically, and spiritually. So if you're out there and you feel like there's something that you can learn from Wade, he is, what you do is you do coaching and you help people.
Yep.
Don't be scared to invest in a coach. It's the best thing that you can do. So if you feel like you can learn from Wade, definitely hit him up on Instagram. I co-sign on his behalf as a great person to learn from without a doubt. Again, Wade, thank you for hopping on, and hopefully we can do another one of these soon.
Let's do it, bro.